Welcome, another episode, Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insights here with Eric Norton. We're going to talk about the Seattle Mariners in a slightly different way than you may have heard before. So Eric was on the inside. But first, thanks to our sponsors, Beckett Media. Obviously, Eric's current employer and my former company in the predecessor. But that also includes Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, and then ComC is a sponsor. Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards up in Aurora, Colorado, Heritage Auctions, Huggins and Scott Auctions, Panini, Topps, and Upper Deck. So great sponsors. Hope you'll patronize our sponsors here, and even Eric's sponsors. Eric's got some great sponsors. Eric, give a shout out to your sponsors, and then let's jump in.
So we got Vintage Breaks that's new. So we got Vintage Breaks, Pastime Marketplace, and of course Dynasty Breaks.
Dynasty, yeah. So Dane on here. Dane's got a following. He's always got something to say. But today we're going to talk about the Seattle Mariners. Now this came up in your origin story.
Sure did.
That you were there for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay.
Some of the worst Mariner seasons ever.
I was going to say, you could have been.
I could have caught, I guess, I was living in, just outside of Seattle in, 01 when they were, really, really hot. So I guess I could have been there, but I chose to, serve. And then by the time I got to the Mariners, they were really bad.
Okay. And so what do you do? And again, this is Sports Card Insights. So, to what extent that allow you access and understanding of how the collectors, how the players viewed collectors and collecting, as well as what involvement you had that led to your coming?
So I worked for the Mariners team store. Little known fact then that the Mariners, and there was one other team, I want to say it was the Rangers, that actually owned their own team stores. Everything else was subcontracted out. So with that being said, I sold gang use memorabilia during the game. So if you hit a foul ball, Jim Beckett hit a foul ball, they would bring that up to me, and then I would sell it to whomever. First base, second base.
Did you mark it? Did you have some PSA DNA?
Yeah,
or some other kind of Price Waterhouse or
right. There's at every home game, every game, there's a MLB authentication guy there.
Okay.
So they'll put a hologram on it.
Okay.
Put the number in the system, and then they'll bring it up to me, and I sell it.
How do you price it?
It depends on who hit it.
Did you get latitude to decide, or did they?
No, there was a tier system. So, a good example was Mike Trout. He was young in his career then. Yeah. You could have bought Mike Trout balls all day for $20. And
how much did you set aside?
I never did that.
Were you a non-collector in those days, kind of, or were you having interest in?
I had interest in it, but it was more on the football side.
Yeah.
And then when I got to be kind of friends with Kyle Seager, it was the Kyle Seager thing, collection. So I bought Kyle Seager balls.
Yeah.
I bought Kyle Seager bats. Again, I said this a minute ago, but first, second, third base, you could buy first, second, and third base from every game, which was,
oh my goodness,
really cool to me. If you saw a big play and you wanted to remember that you were there, you could go buy first, second, third base, and because they switched them out in the 6th inning.
Yeah.
It was really cool to be a part of history too. Like Mo Rivera, when he tied Trevor Hoffman's record,
right.
I was right there in the stadium. They brought one of those balls up, and somebody bought it for $500. And Ichiro was a big part of the team there as well. So had a lot of Ichiro memorabilia that was fun to see.
What's Ichiro like? Is he?
He's very quiet.
Is he understand? His English probably.
Yeah.
Is sometimes they say people's English is better than they let on early on anyway.
He speaks English well.
Yeah.
Whether or not you hear him speak English well is another thing. Ichiro was very quiet, but I think the biggest thing about him to me that was surprising when I first started there was how much power he had during batting practice.
For a tiny guy.
Yeah.
He's wiry.
Yeah, absolutely. But during batting practice, he hit home run after home run after home run. When the game started, he'd slap it to right, and let out a double if he had to, it was fun to see. And then a rocket of an arm for a guy that started in the major leagues later in his life because he played in Japan for so long.
Right.
Just a rocket, absolute rocket.
Yeah. What did you sell cards?
Yeah.
In the store?
We
team sets, or what was it like?
All Topps. We had Topps team sets, and then we had Topps blasters. Sometimes they would bring the hobby box up or whatever, but the team sets were fun. Little known fact about the Seattle Mariners is that they have the most tourists at their stadium every year because they come from Japan and they come from Korea.
Right.
So we would probably sell 5-10 team sets a night, and 82 home games at $7 a piece isn't bad.
How do you reload or restock? Were you getting it from were people putting them together, or you getting them straight from Topps?
You get them straight from Topps, or a distributor from Topps. Who's up there? GTS has a facility up the road from Seattle, so I'm sure it might have came from them.
What were players? Were they? What about autograph situations? Were they authenticated, or did you have stuff that was autographed that didn't need to be authenticated because you were the official store?
Everything was authenticated. We again, MLB was there, so they would authenticate it as it come up. Mill Creek Sports was up the road, and Mill Creek Sports had an exclusive with Ichiro. So sometimes they would get autographs for Ichiro and bring them into the store. Not often, but sometimes, because, well, again, with the tourists, sometimes, how do I say this? Drunken businessmen from overseas would come and buy 5, 6 Ichiro autograph balls at a time, and they were very happy to do so.
Right.
And then organizations like Mariners Care, every team has a situation like that. Right. Every year they would have a Mariners Care grab bag, and for $50 you got a brown sandwich bag, and it had a random autograph in it. So,
really? So it could have been somebody great.
Yeah.
So did you have, so anything happened in the ballpark you had access to from other teams as well?
Yes, absolutely. Again, with the Mo Rivera thing. Yeah, they brought that up. A big thing that I actually started to like were the lineup cards, because you always the lineup card from the day prior would always end up in our store.
Well, there's only one, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So anytime a big game, like I remember we had a lineup card when the Mariners played in Anaheim, and Trout went 4 for 4 with 3 home runs, and that ended up in our store. And I remember the guy that I sold it to, he was buying everything Trout that he could at the time, and he paid $50-$60 for it. And
were the other employees there that were associated with the Mariners, were many of them collectors, or were they, or is there this kind of separation that you've got to set that aside when you're on the team? You can't be hounding autographs or cherry picking collectibles. Were there any ethical dilemmas there? Or?
What they did to discourage that is once a year we had a Mariners employee function, and they brought in the team so we could get autographs.
Get your fill.
Yeah, get our fill. And then, so it was just understood that would happen.
That would be your time.
And that would be your time. For guys who worked in the visitors clubhouse, they could get one or 2 autographs per homestand.
Yeah.
So guys were saving that for when Jeter came or any of the Red Sox. But it was known that you don't ask for autographs, and because we had the team function at the end of the year.
Right. And would you consider yourself a Kyle Seager super collector?
I don't think
just a fan.
Yeah, I'm just a fan. I'm not a super collector. I do have my fair share of Kyle Seager cards. So I just don't have a lot.
Are there? Are you aware of that many Mariners avid collectors of everything's all things Mariners, or I know Ichiro has a big following, but are there?
Well, obviously with Griffey.
Yeah.
And then Randy Johnson.
I know, but they Randy Johnson now. I mean, again, we've had this discussion. If the Mariners had just held on to the talent that they had, they would have been a dynasty.
I think
absolute dynasty.
There are guys out there, and I know this from that market living there, that they have their guys, Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez, anybody on that 95, 96 team.
Edgar stayed there.
Yeah, Edgar stayed there. Yeah. Anybody that you can find from that great call, and that any of those guys are fun to collect. Anybody from the Kingdom, Chris Bosio threw their first no-hitter, so. That was something else I wanted to bring up here. Is working there, I saw 2 perfect games in a combined no-hitter, and that was really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So were you? So you're working the store, but the store overlooked.
It was right behind home plate. So
that's not even fair.
Yeah, all I had to do was there. It is. King Felix's.
How much did you have to pay to get this job?
Oh yeah, right.
Did they pay you or did you pay them?
They paid us, and it was a little more than minimum wage, and I was excited to have it. But King Felix's perfect game was on a Wednesday afternoon, and it was a nice stadium. It was a nice sized crowd, but I had a perfect view right down to home plate. It was awesome.
Yeah. And so cards were not a big part of it. I mean, I realize now that as cards have gotten more complicated with the autographs and the game use stuff, it's the kind of the full integration of the player and the game experience. And I think that's probably a good trend, but just to have a card for card's sake still needs to be.
Sure.
Are there any players that were on the team that hated cards, or did they all see this was an additional source of income for them that was necessary evil? Or
I don't think any of them hated it. None of them like autograph hounds, obviously. But all of the Dominican-born players or Latin-born players, they all loved them. Absolutely loved them. The Mariners team set that that Safeco Field did every year. Felix wanted to see his cards, so, and he wanted to get them. And any of the Latin-born players were like that, but none of them just flat out hated it. It was just part of the
Well,
gig.
how can they hate it when it seems like a lot of them get involved in these jersey swaps?
Right? Yeah.
I mean, so if it's not something that has value, why are they why are they engaging in it?
Right. Exactly.
But I don't know that do many of them collect cards?
Not
you think? Or
not a whole lot.
keep a few cards of their own?
Not a whole lot. Obviously, there are guys who do. Pat Neshek being, the biggest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the more of them are into memorabilia and jersey swaps, and they'd rather have a bat from the opposing team than a baseball card. But again, the Latin-born players loved them, and they did collect their own stuff.
Do you know Spanish?
Me? No, not a lick of
I
it.
wonder what they're talking about sometimes. Yeah. What's your feelings about the Mariners right now? I mean, did that 3 years lock you in? You know, when I was a kid, I was a Pirate fan because we lived in Pittsburgh when I was little, and I got to, Roberto Clemente was my favorite player. I've told that story. But that almost makes you a lifelong Pirate fan, even though they went through the dark days of 20 years of missing the playoffs.
Sure.
But are you locked in now for the Mariners for the rest of your life?
I love Seattle. It's somewhere I always wanted to live, and I got to live there.
Do you want to go back? I mean, don't you love Dallas, Eric? Come on. 110 degrees?
No, I don't want that. I can tell you the first time that when I fell in love with Seattle, my grandfather was watching the evening news, and it was 105 here, and it was 68 degrees in Seattle, and I was like, I want to move there.
Okay.
So I love Seattle. My son spent the first 3 years of his life at Safeco.
Yeah.
There were relationships that I built there on the Mariners that it made it feel like home. So I think I will always, when I go to Ranger games, I always wear Mariners gear. So.
But Eric, you have a really cool job now.
I do. Yeah.
So compare and contrast. Is not your job now better than then? Or would you want to change the venue or get Beckett Media to move out to Seattle or something?
Yeah, that would be great. There are a few things in my life that have beat the smell of a fresh cut baseball field and the Puget Sound, the smell of the salt water coming in. So it's tough, Jim. It's tough.
I don't know about the smells out in Arlington. But the field smells good, and there was just again, were you doing much? Podcasting was not even on your horizon, but you're kind of a gregarious social guy. How was that outlet when you were with the Mariners? Was it working kind of retail and the customer experience? Seems like you probably relished that.
Loved it, absolutely.
But it was face to face.
Yeah, it was face to face.
Whereas now you're.
Yeah, I loved it. We had again so many customers come in from out of the country. So getting to interact with them and learn their passions and, why they love baseball. And then, I do love customer interaction face to face. Being over phone was not what I need. It's not what I like, but be able, to tell you why that's an important Sandy Koufax picture, autograph, that's cool to me.
So you enjoyed explaining those things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Absolutely.
You have a real positive attitude.
I try to be.
And that's really important because the customer's not always right. That's a myth.
Right.
However, they think they're right. And for you to tell them that they're wrong usually doesn't work very well. So you're apparently able to tell them a story to get them thinking in a very positive way. So
the glazed over looks in their face when you explain baseball history.
Yeah.
Is fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm not glazed over here, Eric. I've enjoyed visiting with you about your experience with the Mariners. We're going to do some other teams in the future, but the Mariners has been claimed by Eric. So
thank you, sir.
We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode, and appreciate your listening. And thank you, collectors. Have a good day.